Hi, and welcome to another conversation with Carrie and Dani. It's been a little bit. I was doing a little bit of traveling, nothing exciting this time, and Dani's and I was under the weather for a while, and I'm better. And then Dani was under the weather for a little while, and I hear she's feeling better. So hopefully she can make it without using too many of her cough lollies, as they call them down in New Zealand. They're cough drops to me, but hopefully she'll be doing all right.
Yeah, I'm a little bit croaky still, so I might leave more of the talking to you once we get into it. But definitely feeling better than I was, thank goodness.
Good.
Hey, I would feel better if I'd got a great night's sleep last night, and for some reason I didn't. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was thinking about, oh, sorry, I should have checked with you. Anyway, I've started now, so I'll keep going. I was thinking about some stuff I'd read on the internet. About how there's still places in the world that marry off children.
Mm.
And it really upset me. And it made me angry. I know this, it was what I was reading was from a group of people that are fighting to get it stopped, fighting for children's rights and saying you shouldn't be marrying off children. And I guess what got me thinking about where my thoughts led off this story was that the kids don't know any different.
Mm.
They're only different. Even if it's not the culture of their whole country, it's the culture within their family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the culture that they grew up in. Um, and they don't know any different. So even if they don't like it, to them it's normal. It's normal. And if it's seen it happen to their sisters and stuff, they know it's normal that you live a life that you don't feel happy in. So being miserable or unhappy or not comfortable or unsafe and all those things is normalized in a way. And I think that impacts on a person's ability to fight.
Mm.
Or they don't even think they have the option to fight to get out. It's just, I was just thinking about all of that. And it got me thinking about, so my brain kept going, the whole rabbit hole thing round and round.
Mm-hmm.
I got thinking about I got thinking about abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, abusive relationships, that means something different to all sorts of people.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And I've shared a little bit about my past. And so I was thinking about abusive relationships. And I was thinking about an experience that I had for a goodly portion of my life where the relationship, they wanted to control, they had laws, not laws. I don't want to mention names and things because,
Right.
a lot of people, they had really strong opinions about what I should wear.
Mm-hmm.
And life was really awkward if I didn't, fit in,
Mm-hmm.
and really strong opinions about what I should watch on television and what I should read and what I should cook,
Mm-hmm.
and really strong opinions about what I should do with my money. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they thought they deserved some of my money, even though they had their own, and lots of it. And money's always a contentious thing in relationships, isn't
Oh yeah.
it? They wanted to control who I spoke to, what I did, just ridiculous things. And then, oh my goodness, talk about laying on the guilt trips,
Mm-hmm.
laying on the guilt trips with what a bad person I was when I didn't and it's just really, really hard. And for anybody listening out there that's thinking, hey Dani, kick that bloke to the curb,
Mm-hmm.
get rid of him and get a new one. Actually, the relationship I was thinking about wasn't with an individual man.
Mm.
It was actually the relationship I had with my church.
Oh, yeah.
And so I guess why I told that way is because I didn't know any different. I spent most of my life, or a lot of it, perfectly happy being miserable because, like those kids that grew up in a culture where it was just accepted in their family
Hmm.
that this is how you felt, and you just knuckled down under the pressure and the stress and just waded through the bad things and kept surviving. It was the same way. So, really, I spent a whole pile of my life mostly happy because I didn't know there were any other alternatives. And it just, a lot of the things I grew up with were normalized.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so part of what brought all that stuff to mind was I recall you saying as well that you had seen and you did see an interview or you'd read some stuff on Steve Hassan's bike model. Tell me
Yeah.
what that was about.
So if those of you who aren't familiar with Steve Hassan, he was a Moonie, um, part of that cult from the 70s, and he was in it for a few
Ooh.
years and was able to get out. Now he has a doctorate degree, and his thing is helping people um, find freedom. And his organization is called Freedom of Mind Resource Center. And so he has, and I don't know. I think he originated the bite model. Maybe he didn't, but he has something called the bite model of authoritarian control. And I do believe there's a survey on his website that you can fill out just to see if, if you're in, um, he says cult, you could say high demand religion, or as Dani pointed out, you could even call it a
Mhm.
toxic relationship with an organization that you're a part of. And so I think this is always something that is interesting to look into and see if we can see parallels. I know for myself, one of the reasons that I personally chose to leave is because there's so many similarities between the Mormon Church, as they like to be called now, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Jehovah Witnesses, and a lot of things. So I did print out a copy, and I'll just hold it here so you guys can see. I'm a very visual learner, so if you go to Freedom of Mind or even just type in bite model, and he also has a Steve Daly. Those you may people might be familiar with him. He's the author of this book. I know I've showed this on our YouTube channel before. So he also contributed his answers to a breakdown of how the bite model applies to Seventh Day Adventists. So there are different things that he has it color coded: red, or green, orange, red, like a stoplight. Um, so that can give us an idea of how severe. And so we're just going to look at it and see how far we get. So just a quick overview. B stands for behavioral control. I stands for information control. T stands for thought control. And E stands for emotional control. So this model is used to kind of analyze how does an organization control your behavior, the information that you consume, your thoughts, and your emotions. So, and some of you, and so Dani and I are just going to have a conversation about how maybe our lives, our experience in the Seventh day Adventist Church, and how that applies to this model. And I know some of you may argue and say, I never had that experience. We're not speaking to your experiences, we're speaking to our experiences, and maybe experiences of friends or family members that might be pertinent. So,
The other thing too, Carrie, I think, is that if someone had talked to me about this stuff 20 years ago when I was in it, I would have said that's not my experience because there was a part of me that was doing everything willingly. And I would have said, no, 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 I'm doing this willingly because I want to get to heaven.
yeah.
You see, so
Yep.
it was my choice. So therefore, I never felt like I was part of a high control religion.
Right.
It wasn't until I did the Bible studies, especially Galatians, and someone said to me, read it over and over again. And I would read it, and all I could see was what I'd been told was there.
Yep.
And recently, I was talking to one of my other, I'm talking to someone else that I know, and I said the same thing to them. And they asked me questions, and I said to them, look, I said, I'm not going to discuss stuff with you or try and talk you into things. I said, read Galatians. I said, and if you read it enough times that you see what's actually there, not what you've been told is there, then you won't need to ask me these questions because you'll know for yourself.
Hmm.
But the thing is that while I thought I was doing them willingly, I was only doing them willingly because I'd been convinced since I was a child, when I didn't know any different, that this was the only way to God in heaven.
Hmm.
Once I realized that it wasn't the only way, then my mind opened up to the thought that I'd been controlled.
Yes. Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
of course it was, I just wanted to like highlight that because there might be people out there that are the same as me that think, hey, you know what, I'm here willingly. And I'm here willingly because this is the only way to God in heaven.
Right.
And of course, once you get past, for me, I had to get past that thought before I could see
Hmm.
truth of anything else. And I just wanted to highlight that in case there's other people out there that are thinking the same
Oh,
thing.
absolutely. Let me wonder
And
if it
my
makes sense to
computer.
put it on the screen, or we could just talk about it. Might as well
Uh,
just have a chat. Be a little
yeah,
easier.
just you can just read them out and then I can see you still.
Yeah.
I like to
Okay.
see you when we're talking, especially when it's something
Yeah.
we've never talked about before.
So B is for behavior control. So there are 25 points that Steve Hassan had put under here. So the first one, and I'm just going to read it off of Steve Daly's, so it's color coded. So remember, it's the red, orange, green. So the first one, and he has designated this as orange, is to regulate an individual's physical reality. For the Adventist Church, this is especially true with regard to diet, Sabbath keeping, and forms of forbidden entertainment.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't even need to comment on that because
Yep.
that's just so obvious.
Number two is also designated orange, is dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates. And he says Seventh day Adventists strive to keep their members isolated from society, attending SDA schools and living strictly by SDA standards. Of course, nominal members tend to ignore many of these controls, which is true. I mean, I grew up in one of the what we affectionately termed Adventist ghettos. I don't think I had anybody I would have considered a friend that wasn't an Adventist until I was in college.
Yeah, it's fairly similar to me. Adventist schools, Adventist doctors, Adventist youth groups.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's
And
gonna no. I mean, I was just thinking about hobbies. I was into horses, but all my horse riding was all through people in the church that had it as well for a
mm,
long time.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I'm sure that I didn't have. I had one non-Adventist friend that I
Mm-hmm.
met when I was 12 years old. And that was only because there was no private school in the area that was safe. It was a bit of a rough side of town where her parents lived. So they
Mm-hmm.
sent her to the Adventist school.
Yeah. Yep.
But I never would have met her if her parents hadn't have sent her to an Adventist school.
Well, and I suppose I think now that you mentioned that, I did have a friend in academy in high school that was Catholic, so but her parents sent her there because it was private school, a private religious
Hmm.
school, and there wasn't another one close by, so that's where she ended up. And I don't, and I'm not saying for me personally growing up, it was never forbidden to be friends with Adventists, but they just weren't in my circle because I went to
Yes.
church, I went to school, and I was home.
Yep.
My job when I was in high school, I did work at a wholesale plant nursery. So there was a lot of, non-Adventists there, but I never socialized with them outside of work,
Do you have the
So,
sanitarium health foods over there?
mm-mm.
Okay, over here we have a thing called Sanitarium Health Foods, Australia and New Zealand. It's huge. They have it's like over 50% of the breakfast cereal market and all the they make tofu sausages and plant-based foods and they're absolutely massive. They're worth
Mhm.
millions. And there's a lot of drama at the moment about them because they go under the fact they're a religious organization to get tax exemptions.
Yep.
And they're owned by the Adventist Church.
So we have here,
Oh, you have
um,
Loma Linda Whole Foods or something, don't you?
yeah, there are, but there's been so many different changes of hands and stuff. But by most of the Adventist colleges, there's an Adventist grocery store. Um,
This
Coincidentally,
is
you guys have little Debbie's down there? Probably not. It's like the Twinkies or the snack cakes that are really, really, really sugary snacks. That's owned by Adventists in Tennessee.
no.
It is.
Okay.
And so, I mean, of course, they're closed on Saturday. Their outlet bakery or their outlet store where you can buy stuff. But that's right on a basically on campus of one of the Adventist colleges.
Okay. So
So
the reason I brought up
that's not
sanitarium is
health
because
food though.
I, well, I wouldn't say everything these guys sells health food either, but I brought it up because that's where I worked.
Hmm.
So all my school holidays I spent working inside the church organization as well.
Now, did they question us a side question? Do they hire non-Adventists there?
I can remember at least one.
Okay, because so the little grocery store on a college campus I'm reasonably familiar with, when they're advertising for a cashier, you can't work at the grocery store unless you are an Adventist in good standing.
No, no, back, I mean, I'm talking when I was working there, it was,
Sure.
it was 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were definitely some non-Adventists working
Sure.
there. But this is a factory, so they make,
Right.
Wheat Bix and they put peanut butter into jars. And so
Okay.
they need, the mechanics and machinery people as well as
Hmm.
cooks and sweepers. And
Right.
yeah, so same as you, I was
Okay.
never told not to hang out with
Yeah.
non-Adventists, but there just weren't any, like you said. But there's a but though, Carrie. Hang on, there's a but. The but is that I was always taught that you need to be careful who you hang out with because you come like them. And it was quoted with that Bible verse about by beholding you become changed.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Okay. Number three. This is orange as well. When, how, and with whom the member has sex. The SDA pamphlet has has some very bizarre teachings about sex and sexual practice, but the privacy of sex makes this difficult for the church to monitor, which is true. I mean, of course, premarital or extramarital sex is discouraged, but I don't think it was. I was unaware of a lot of the weird things that she had to say about that subject up until a few years ago. But he dictates that shows this as orange, which is probably true. It's not necessarily an extreme monitoring. I mean, it can't be. It's private, you know.
Yeah.
So,
But it was definitely, no sex and
yep.
oh my goodness. I can remember my mum having those talks with my brothers
Mm-hmm.
about,
Yep.
not touching yourself.
Yep. Well, that's
It's a
Ellen White says
sin.
you're going to shorten your lifespan if you do any of that stuff. So, anyway,
Um,
you got to get your hands on that Ellen White book and read it. I think it would be entertaining for you. I know you
so,
haven't read it yet, but
so
um
I'm just laughing because here I am talking, saying my mum said that my brothers were told not to touch themselves, and the next words out of your mouth are, "You got to get your hands on." And I'm
oh,
like, "What? Where are you going with this, Carrie?"
just let me finish my sentence, Danny. Okay, number four, he has this designated as orange. Control types of clothing and hairstyles. Yes, very true when I was growing up in Adventism, but less true today, at least in more liberal areas where Adventism is practiced. So,
No, not in all the schools, though. So if you think about the schools as being the training grounds for
yep,
Adventism,
yep.
I know it's not quite as strict as it was, but seriously, we had strict rules about how long your skirt was going to be and your hair. They didn't say that girls couldn't have short hair, but there was lots of rules about how long men could have hair and
Mhm.
rules about jewelry and
Ugh,
what you couldn't wear for sports.
right. Well,
And
and
then
so the high school that my kids went to, they got around a lot of that by doing uniforms for a while. So everybody had to wear khaki pants, no skirts for the girls, even because then you didn't have to worry about them wearing them too short, and
oh,
polo shirts.
I
Yeah.
went to the Adventist schools and we had uniforms, and I was always in trouble because of uniform code violations. Quite often, simply because mum had brought us the wrong length socks. And I can remember her rocking up to the school and going, "I'm a solo mum. I don't have any money. If you don't like the length socks that my kids are wearing, buy them yourself and give them another pair." But yeah, even with uniforms, we'd have uniform free days 3 or 4 times a year. But even in your uniforms, it was really, really, really controlled. And yes, very controlled for hair and no dye of any sort ever, no coloring, no bleachings,
Well, and
no.
I didn't own a two-piece
Oh,
swimsuit that showed my tummy until I was well into college because it was just not, because a lot of times when we would go swimming, we would go to the local university pool and you had to wear a one piece. You couldn't go into the pool there. So I didn't have 10 swimsuits. I only had one, so it was always a struggle to find one that would fit and I would be comfortable with it because I necessarily didn't mind the modesty rules for myself. I know
yeah.
some struggled with it, but I was always a good little rule follower for the most part. Um, so yeah, that and hairstyles, I think for the men, it was my brother started wearing his hair long in high school and it wasn't a problem. Um, so number five, he has this is our first red one. Regulate diet, food, drink, hunger, and or fasting. So Steve's commentary or Daly's commentary on there is very strict dietary rules and requirements. No unclean meats or foods, no alcohol. Many see vegetarianism as a requirement based on the prophet's teaching. I interacted with a lot of, I wouldn't, okay, a lot, several, whatever, quite a few Adventists in my 40 plus year career in Adventism or time in Adventism that I think truly believed that being vegan and vegetarian, and if not vegan, was a requirement to be an Adventist, you know, so that if you were eating a cheeseburger or a burger or anything, that was very bad. Yeah.
Uh, Most of my life spent in Adventism, all the ones I hung out with were crazy strict on that.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember more than once going to church lunches where everything at church lunch was vegan, and to take something that wasn't total vegan, forget vegetarianism, total vegan, and still exists to this day. The
Mm-hmm.
same, the church I'm thinking of, one of them in particular is still exactly the same and ridiculously strict because I know people that still go there.
Well, and this is a true story. When I will not say which church this was at, but it was very early on in my husband and I's ministry, and we uh anyway said something to that Jesus wasn't vegetarian, and one of the dear members said, well, Jesus didn't have the light that we have.
What? And
True
and Carrie,
story. And real Adventists don't eat cheese, but yes, this person said Jesus did not have the light that we have now.
um I'm shocked by two things. One of them's that, and two is shows how badly indoctrinated I've been. That I'm still struggling to get my head out of the things that have been brainwashed into me.
Mm-hmm.
It never occurred to me till you said it right then. Never. I've never ever considered until you spoke that Jesus wasn't vegetarian. I mean,
No,
now when you say it, it's really obvious, but I never ever thought to even think about it
he
because
he participated.
vegetarianism's been brainwashed into me
Yeah,
since I was born.
he participated in the Passover meals, so I would assume he's been eating lamb.
Yeah,
It's
lamb.
documented that
Um,
he was roasting fish on the beach after his resurrection for his disciples, but
true.
for somebody to say Jesus doesn't, didn't have the light that we have now, but that's the same people who will say Ellen White is the lesser light leading us to the greater light. You don't need a flashlight if you've got the sun.
You know, not only did we grow up vegetarian and were taught all that stuff, but I shared once before in one of my other stories that one of the guys that I dated um, told me that because I ate hot potato chips, I obviously didn't want a relationship with God because the clearer my mind is, the closer I can be to God. So if I'm eating food that might make my brain not as clear as it could be, I'm proving that I don't even want to be friends with God.
So spicy potato
And
chips?
just potato chips, just deep fried potato chips.
Oh,
Or then my mum, you call them fries, I think.
oh,
My
okay. Yep, yep.
we grew up. I can remember growing up with we're only allowed to eat. It was because Ellen White said somewhere you shouldn't eat more than 3 or 4 eggs a week.
Hmm.
in one of her books. So there's stuff about even limiting eggs. And my brother and I were talking about this in the last couple of months and saying that he thought part of the reason that I'm the oldest, that I'm so short, isn't just DNA, and part of the health issues we face now, him and I, that we face now, is because when you look at the veg, we could go a couple of days and barely eat any protein. Now that people understand how important protein is for the building blocks of your body, we realize that we grew up so malnourished. And there'll be people out there going, no, 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 you can get all the protein you need from a vegetarian diet. I believe that. Absolutely, you can. What I'm saying is that we didn't.
Right.
You've got to eat an awful lot of lentils and an awful lot of beans,
Yep.
and they weren't cheap, and we didn't. When I look
Hmm.
back on what I grew up eating, we grew up quite malnourished, and I would be surprised
Hmm.
if it wasn't the same for a lot of people if they were really honest about it
Well, and
and actually had read the
yeah,
latest research on what's required.
yeah. Well, and protein is kind of such a big thing too. And you can be a very healthy vegan, but it takes more work than I'm willing to do
Um, I,
at this at this
I,
at this point in my life, and I think that early on in, I think, talking to my dad and my aunt what they ate, because their mom was pretty strict when they were kids as far as what they could and couldn't eat. And I don't think my dad would mind me telling this story because where they're at now is, a nice good mix of meat eaters and vegetarians, and my
yeah,
parents are not strict vegetarian. And he said he never remembers eating meat until his parents got a divorce and he was able to hang out with his dad's family and eat what they had prepared, because his mom was so afraid to take him to her husband's family because they would have meat, or that she'd be afraid they'd get some. And he said his first bite of pot roast, he's like, this is so good. So he had finally actually had some because his dad let him eat it, and to be so controlled and to limit family relationships because of that, it's just, it's sad. But most potlucks of Adventist churches here in the Midwest of the US, they are vegetarian, typically not vegan, because in the Midwest we love our cheese and our dairy products. We like to season with cheese, um, extra cheese on everything. Um, but there are some, a family member told me about a church that they attended in another part of the country where, basically anything went. Obviously they wouldn't want you to bring pork or seafood, but you could bring dishes with meat or cheese or vegan or veg, whatever, and they would have colored little flags you could put in the dish, so it'd be on the table, and you could say, oh, that one's red, so that's got beef in it. I'm a vegetarian, I'm not going to eat that one, but I'm going to have this that has cheese in it because I'm good with cheese. But if you're vegan, so then it would, nobody made a deal out of it. You just identified it, which is important to do anyway with food allergies and everything, right? So I think that there are some churches that are doing a more balanced approach to that now, but the true ultimate,
I've never seen or heard of one. Not ever. I've
yeah.
never seen or heard of one. Except for the story you've just told me. I've never heard of one anywhere else ever.
Well, and I will say the um main, or the Adventists that are holding true to the doctrine that they've, of Ellen White and everything, shouldn't be doing it that way.
So regulation diet and food. So
Yep.
all sorts of things come under regulating diet and food. I'm
Yep.
just gonna really quickly pop back. A couple of weeks ago I told you that my next door neighbor had a friend that
Hmm.
had committed suicide.
We have just less than 10 minutes, Danny. Just FYI.
Okay. Um, my neighbor's friend, I've had some more information on that.
Mm.
And the information that's come through on that is, because I talked about it in one of our podcasts, is that she wanted to be baptized.
Hmm.
She wanted to
Hmm.
be baptized. She'd been convinced that you had to be baptized in Adventist to get to heaven. And the local church refused to baptize her.
Mm.
They said that the fact she was drinking alcohol, they could still baptize her potentially with that because they could pray about it and God could I forget the word, not release her, but but basically release her from that
Sure.
addiction and work a miracle, and that'd be okay. But she had had some surgery done, and she was on cannabis, medical cannabis. The doctor had prescribed it for pain relief for
Mm.
surgery, and they said that there was no way they could baptize somebody that was ingesting that. And so that was part of the whole depression that and stuff that was come through with to her not wanting to live. It's always more complicated than that. I understand that's just one little factor. But when you start talking about diet and food and regulating what goes into our body through our mouth, I suddenly thought I'd remember, yeah, I don't know if I
I
told you about that. It was
I
just,
did hear a story of a woman, and this is not I don't know this person, this individual. I can't tell you where I saw it, but she was was it down in Texas, Arizona, somewhere in that area. And she was disfellowshipped because she was using marijuana for pain management and she was a cancer patient.
yeah, well, that was the crazy thing that was that I do know someone else that was a cancer patient and had was on marijuana in the exact same church that wouldn't baptize this lady, and the other person, the church board had approved it because she was dying of cancer, and I guess so. The person telling me the story when they spoke, I was just horrified. But what horrified me wasn't that the church had said no to one person but approved the person dying of cancer. What horrified me was that the church even frickin' knew about it. How is it any of their business?
And she may have confessed, like when she I was asking for baptism, say, look, I'm doing that. But just and here's the hypocrisy that bothers me is they're okay with alcohol, but they're not okay with the pot, with
But
the cannabis. And she's using it for pain management because she is sick and it was prescribed for the doctor. But if she was taking oxycodone or any of these other heavy duty narcotics, the church would have been fine with it.
yep, and they're all way more damaging to your health. But the crazy thing is it's even deeper than that. If we're going to go down the whole high control, rabbit hole, let's get down it further.
Sure.
Okay, you're talking about a culture where someone even feels they need to confess that.
Yeah.
You're talking about, yeah, what's happening in and around the person that they would even feel the need to confess or share that. It's just, ah,
And I will tell you this. This is flat out. So I live in a state that marijuana use is not legal. But you can go to three neighboring states, which is within a 3 hour drive or less, which in the
yeah.
US is not a long drive. Go across the border to the dispensaries and get what you need and come back. I have somebody I know through work, just an acquaintance. He was injured severely in an industrial accident. He is lucky he's alive. He's lucky he can walk. He was essentially folded in half by something falling on him. And he said the way he manages his pain, it's better than getting the prescription strength pain meds, is he goes to another state, he goes to a certain dispensary, he gets gummies, little gummy candies that have got the
Yep.
stuff in it. He cuts one up in, I think he said 10 pieces. So it's tiny little bits. He says every hour or two, he has a piece of that, and that manages his pain better than any of the narcotic pain meds.
Well, here in New Zealand,
Yeah,
it's illegal. It's not legal unless you have a medical script.
sure. I
So yeah, so it's if you get picked up with it and you don't have a medical script, you can still get sent to jail.
But I think from a this is not that's in my opinion that's not the church's business. They don't
Yeah,
need to
that's
know
right.
they don't need to know how you're managing your pain.
Yeah.
I think that they should be grateful that somebody has found a way to not be in pain.
Yeah.
Um, and
Oh,
uh, Go ahead.
sorry, we got running out of time, and I was just going to
Yeah.
say we're obviously going to have to come back to this if we want to finish the
Yes.
list. But
Yes.
while we're on point five, which was
Yes.
about regulating diet and food, I wanted to quickly say about the fasting. I remember, especially growing up when I was younger, that the people that fasted on Sabbath morning so that they came to church with a clearer mind and and more hungry for God because they'd been fasting, and so there was no food in their body. Just they were always like extra spiritual as opposed to us, like me, that ate breakfast. I
I
never
mean,
made it to the extra spiritual group. I never came to church and fasted on Saturday so I could have a better experience with God.
I need food. Otherwise, all I'm thinking about is food.
Are you not in the extra spiritual group either, Carrie?
No, no, you know what? I'm not going to get there on my own merits anyway. So if I need to have a snack to pay attention to a sermon, I think that's probably a good thing because it's better to sit there and have a full tummy and be able to listen than to be starving and thinking about what dinner is in the oven.
So did you have that in any of your ones? People like it wasn't a requirement, but it was talked about, and the extra spiritual people were the ones that could fast on a Sabbath morning.
I wouldn't have been surprised, but I don't recall any of them talking about it. And I think that
Okay.
if they were doing it, they would be like, "Yes, look at me. I'm so
So do
spiritual."
you want to do you want to come back and finish this list and then or not
Yes.
finish it? Maybe we just pick out some highlights because we're not going to finish this list. People can always read it for themselves.
Yep. Well, I think we should wrap it up, I guess. And here's another thing, guys, wait a couple of days. We'll probably be in the same outfits because we're just gonna stop the video here and then we'll repost again here in a couple of days to work on going through Steve Hassan's bite model. We made it through number 5 of 25 of the first letter, so we didn't
Oh,
make it
wow.
very far. So
And
if y'all,
share your stories. If
yes,
you've got a story
yes,
different or similar or the same or even worse than, more extreme, we
yes.
want to hear about it.
That's why we're here. We're not, I mean, we
Yeah.
enjoy talking to each other, but we'd like to talk to more of you too. So, um, like, share, subscribe, and we will see you again in a few days. Thanks, everybody.